Welcome everybody. This is Thomas Turingham, screenprintingartist.com. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube and I'll be able to keep bringing you more videos like this one. In this one we're going to create a school logo that is really kind of unique, so it's kind of a quick way of doing things. I created two intersecting guidelines here, so I'm going to start that with a circle, and then I'm going to make a point here, and I'm just going to draw my background real quick. I'm not going to make a 100% black background to begin with, just so I can see easier. So I'm going to shift page down, put it behind everything. Control S is save. Now you can make a background by double clicking this and changing the background color, but I just like to use shapes. Sometimes there's just easier, it's just faster to change it. I don't have to go into the dialog. This first step is I'm going to make an outside shape here. So I'm going to grab this, and then I'm going to hit the duplicate key. Now you want to make sure that your duplicates are set to 0 so that you can follow along and have the same basically experience that I do. Hit duplicate, then I hold the shift key, grab the corner, and then you can drag it down and you can get basically a shape like this. I'm going to hold the shift key, click this, and then control L, and then I'm going to zoom in here, right here, and then I'm going to just fill this shape because I combined it with a light gray, and then I'll right click on the no outline sign right there, and then you can see this shape right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save the file, control S, and then I'm going to alt VW and go to wireframe mode, and then kind of quick I'm going to go ahead and click the shape tool. I'm going to get the roughen brush out. Now the roughen brush, you can see it's set pretty fine right here. I'm going to drag it up like this, and what I can do is I can just by kind of nudging this and make sure I'm selected on this object, use the roughen brush, and I can come in and just kind of grab it. And I don't want to do a lot of roughing to this. I just kind of want to here and there just kind of quickly nudge it and just make it a little bit bumpier. I don't want to overdo it. I just kind of want to just create a few little bumps there. That's pretty good. And you can go around, like I said, you can pan over here. Let me zoom in again and just kind of gently go around. And if it's not working, just reselect on your design and then hit roughen brush, and then you can just kind of, like I said, you're just nudging this a little bit here and there. Kind of see where I'm going in here. Let go. Now if you get little clips like that, just undo it, and you can just kind of do it again. Whoops. And if it does give you a little bumps there, it's a good idea not to go too far along when you're using this brush, so that you don't, like I said, overdo it a little bit. And if you're getting too dramatic, you can always nudge this down a little bit, either in size like this, so that your size of your nudge is a little bit less. And again, if it's not working, click it again, and then go ahead and grab your roughen brush again. And you can see how if I use a little bit less, gives me, I don't know if yeah, there we go. I was going to say I didn't know if I did something there. This just allows you to get kind of a roughed up looking circle here relatively quickly. I'm just trying to get kind of a, I guess, more organic shape than just a real smooth circle. So I'm just kind of running this along it. Again, not doing a real perfect job, because if you use a roughen brush too much in one spot consistently, it'll give you kind of a weird consistent roughness to it. But this isn't too bad. I'll go ahead and control S, save it, right? And then I need to make a second set of these, so alt V E. And what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to grab this, I'm going to hold the shift key, go ahead and drag it down a little bit narrower, so right about there. I'm going to right click, and then I click here, control K, and then I'll go ahead and right click on my outline just to make an outline, and then control page down just so I can see the. Now you can kind of see how thick that one is, so I want to make this one about the same width here. I'm not that worried that these bumps might be a little bit smaller than those. I don't think it'll be that apparent in the final. One thing I do want to do, hold the shift key, is rotate them a little bit just so that they're not there. I went ahead and rotated them. Click shift and then combine them and then save it, and then right click to turn off any of the shape things here. And now we're doing pretty good here. We got our 2 rings done that we want to do, and now I got to kind of make the inside type here. Let's go ahead and make a type real quick. We'll go ahead and hold the caps locks on. Let's do Washington, and then we'll do high school, and then undo the cap locks, and then Eagles right there. I'm going to hit the Control S, save it. I'm going to break this apart, Control K, and then Eagles. I'm going to go ahead and grab this. I'm going to go ahead and use a font like that has a little shape to it. Let's try. There's a couple different fonts we can use. Let's try this one. Kind of an old school vintage font here. You can kind of see that. You can see a little bit of a clip here, but that's okay. I'm going to hit Control K and break it apart. And I'm going to enlarge the E just so that it looks a little bit more like it fits with the rest of the font. There is the capability here to have a tail created, so I'm going to add one of those. So that's a tail. I don't really like the way it cuts across the G here, but I can fix that in a little bit later. And I'm also going to fix the tail. So for right now, and I'm going to fix this part of the font because you see how it's not connecting here. What I'm going to do there is I'm actually going to take the A, drag it over, right click. I'm going to cut it out. It's just real quick, double click with the freehand tool, double click, and double click, and then come over here, hold the shift key and trim it, and then you'll see this, hit delete, and then this I can drag over and kind of align it there. Now I want it to be like right about here, and let me drag all these pieces over, hold the shift key, and then drag them all over, so this is pretty close to right there. So it gives you about the same kind of thing here as that one. If I wanted a little more curved arc up, I could change it just by going into the nodes. Let me just go to shape. You can just drag this up a little bit, and like I said, this could just come out, and then whoops, and then this could just arc down, just so you get just a little bit more curve. I could also double click here and then delete, and then I get a little bit more arc here. That makes it look like it's going to merge with that one. It's just a little bit more of a fluid flow to the text. And then all these pieces right here can be combined, and you can see what happens if I go to wireframe mode there. They're starting as all these individual pieces right here. And before I do any commands like combine or weld, I always want to save the file, so Control S, and then I'll hit weld, and you saw it welds it all together, and then hold the shift key, and then I'm going to weld this, weld, but I don't want to weld the tail, so let me Control K, break it apart. I want to weld the S and all of this together. Let me weld that. I don't want to weld the tail, and I'll show you why. I'm going to take the tail now, click this, and see it's still listed as a font, so I want to hit Control K. But what I want to do here, I'm going to click this, I'm going to kind of trim it off. Let me delete those. I know that looks a little weird, but I'm going to take it here, I'll take this down here, and I'll kind of arc it like this, and then I'll bring this forward, and I'm just going to create a little like flare here, there, here, and then let me pan over a little bit so I can grab this handle, bring it back a little bit, and then I'm going to actually invert this. Whoops, I'll create a node here, double click, let me get rid of this node, I can make a corner out of it, and then I'm just going to kind of arc it. And I'll bring this up just so it's a little bit sharper. And I want these to be past or even with the outside edge of that. Then it arcs this way, and then I want this to be just a hair sharper down here, and then it arcs up. And that's about what I wanted for a tail. So I wanted to switch the tail a little bit. I'm also not crazy about the way this arcs here because it looks a little clunky, but we could smooth it out a little bit. Probably, let me hit Control Save, or Control S I mean. So this here and this there, and then this here and this there, and then we get rid of, whoops, didn't make a node. I thought I did, but I didn't. Let me delete that, and see how that kind of smoothed that out, although I can nudge it up a little bit. Whoops, make that. Double click here and double click there, and then I'm going to get rid of a bunch of these nodes up here because they look kind of weird. And then this, see how this gets weird, kind of fatter there? I'm not sure what's going on with that. So let me double click there and get rid of these three, and that'll arc, and then I'll click here and just kind of roll. See, that was already looking kind of better, a little more fluid, and then I'll double click there and then get rid of these two, and it just kind of smooths that out. So if it take a little bit extra time and things look a lot smoother, it's definitely worth it. So I'm going to Alt V E. Okay, there we go, looks good. And then what I'm going to do here, Control S, save, and then these fonts, I'm going to pick, I just want to pick like a chunky font for this in the background. So I'm going to click here, and let's just find one that's, you know, college might be okay, or something that's kind of, you know, geometric, you know, something that has a little bit of a, let's go down here real quick. Could use Stahl's Varsity maybe. And just kind of fatten it up a little bit. That'll work. Gives us kind of a high school look. Go ahead and Control S, save it. And then, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this font here. I'm going to group it. Bring it over, and I want it to be a little bit bigger than my circle, like that. And then I'm going to click here, and I kind of want to just arch it up like this. And then I can bring this whole thing down, shrink it a little bit maybe, right about there. Save it, and then essentially what we're going to do here is I've got it as two separate pieces, and this is going to be white, but I want to actually have that G like showing, and these pieces here will be actually on the in between the circle here. Pan this over. I'm going to do the eagles part first, and then we can just finish up with the other type, and then we'll add the effect and we'll be done. So here, this I'm going to ungroup. And what I want is I'm going to put a pretty heavy outline on this, on actually both of these pieces. So I'm going to double click here, and let's go ahead and put a RGB outline on here, and let's go ahead and add probably like a 16. I'm going to say OK. So that's a pretty fat outline on this. And what I want to do, and you'll see this relatively quickly, I'm going to go, this is actually shift page up, and you can see how there's a little clip there that I don't really like, and then I want a piece over here. I'm going to fix those in a minute, but I'm going to hit Control S. I actually want to extrude this now. Let's go ahead and extrude it, and I'm just going to click the middle, and I'm going to drag it down. But when it comes up now, I'm going to hit effects, and I'll hit extrude just so I get the dialog box to open up, because I don't want small back, I want back parallel. And you'll see here that I can go right about there, and it'll give me a parallel, what would you say, like a parallel kind of like mapped out piece here that kind of pushes out away from the font. Like right about there is perfect. And then what I want to do there, I want to take this I want to click this piece, and I'm going to put effects, object, and I want to say copy effect, extrude from, and then I'll click this, and it'll give me the same effect on that other piece. You see that? But I actually want this clipped out of here, so I'll fix that later. So we're going to do that. What I'll do is I'll actually clip this all the way up, but you'll see that in a second. So a couple things, right? I don't like the clunk here, right? So I got to fix that. And then the other part is I'm just going to make sure these are, let me double click here. I want to make sure these are rounded. Let's say OK. And then make sure that my extrude group on both of these is also rounded. So OK, as well as this piece, which should be, yes, okay, so we should be good. Now I'm going to hit Control S, save it, and now I just need to tweak this a little bit, and then let's see here, what I'll do is I'll click this, let's break it apart. So I'll click here, Control K, and then click here, Control K. So I broke them both apart. So this is my first group. I'm going to right click here, and then this extrude group that I have, I'm going to set it as like, let's do it like a 50% black, right like that. We'll darken up our background a little bit more so you can see it. And then this, same thing. I'm going to go like 50% black and no outline. And then let's go ahead and fix this. So what I want to do, I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to go up, shift page up, so I cut off that extrusion there, and then I want to cut out this piece here, but there should be an extrusion visible there. So I want to, what I can do is I'll click this piece and I'll just go ahead and edit the, I'll make sure that's a corner, and I can just drag, whoops, I'll make sure this is a corner too, and then I can just drag this down, and you can see how you see that extrusion through there now. That's what I want. And then what I can do now is I can add a little bit of an outline to this, because I know it's 50% gray, so click, and then I'll just add like, let me go ahead and add that color, 50% black, and then let's go ahead and add like maybe an 8-point outline there. Not too big, but it kind of helps flesh it out and make sure they're both rounded. And say OK. And then that's perfect. And then now I can just fix this little clip here. And what I do is I just grab this, hit Control D, and then shift page up. It goes above everything. And then I hit no outline. And then I'm just going to cut it here. It doesn't really matter where I cut it, but I can kind of cut it here. Double click there, and I'm just going to trim this part of the tail off so the G is right like that. I hit delete. I'm going to hit save, Control S, so I saved it. Yeah, and now you can kind of see how this works right here. In the case of these pieces on the outside right here, there's a couple different ways of dealing with that. What I'm going to do for this design is I actually want to really quick create a contour cutout. So I'm just going to take this piece and take my piece below. I'm going to Control D. I'm going to shift page up, and then I'm going to go ahead and merge them. And then I will just take the outline off, and then I'm going to go to contour effect. Contour over here. I'm going to go ahead and do a pretty decent sized contour, and I want to make sure it's the outside. And again, I always save it. Control S before I do anything. Here, Control S, save the file, and then I'm going to do my contour here. Outside. Let's go ahead and do maybe 2, and then hit apply. And I'll go a little bigger. Maybe let's try 3 and hit apply. That's probably about right. Let me go here. And I could, like I said, you know, you can go for more rounded corners here because the other corners are rounded. And then you can probably go even just a little bit bigger. Go to 4 and see. It might be a little too big. Let's go 3, 2. Okay. And Control K. And then I can shift page down and then page up 1. And you can see how it works here, but it doesn't work around the extrusion, right? Because the extrusion was like pushed down. But what you can do is you can take this and you can drag it down and right click, and you can then shift page down and then page up, and then you can nudge it so that it kind of works right about where the extrusion is too. You see that? So it kind of arcs around the same distance. And all we're trying to do is make a cutout for this so that it extracts out the pieces behind this. And so we go ahead and do that. We're just using this as a cutout. So hold that, hold the shift key, and then just trim it. And then this one, click this, and then just trim. And then this here, click that, and trim. Oops, not weld, trim. There. And then the same thing here. Click this, click that, and then trim. And then you get rid of these. Delete them. And you can see how that's cut out, right? Just using kind of a quick contour of it. The other thing is, now that we're really close to this, I'll save. And I just want to make sure if I have that. Yep, I just moved it to make sure that piece is gone. And then I can click my background and fill it with black, because it is going to go on a black shirt. And we want to darken this up to that 50%. Let's go ahead and go, 50 here. So it's about the same as that back. And then I want to create the arc for the type, and then I'm going to create a little flare behind this thing, and it'll be ready to go. One thing is I want to do a little effect to the font here, which is like a can effect almost, for lack of a better word. And I'll do it in 2 pieces. So I'll save the file, and then I click this, and I'll go inside contour, but I'll go quite a bit less. So I'll go, probably like 7 or so, or maybe 8. And I'll make sure I'm at inside contour, and I'll hit apply. And then you can see how it went inside. Now, if you can't tell because of the outline that's on the contour, one thing you can do, it's a useful step, is to click here and duplicate it, and then right click and take off the outline, and then hit a contour to it. And you can kind of see, okay, I want it to be a little tighter, so I need to, I want it to be a little closer. Let me see, I just want maybe a little bit more out, away from there, and you'll see what I'm doing in a second. Let's go a little bit heavier there. Okay, right about there. I'll hit Control K, and then I'm going to also do it down to here, and I'll hit Control D, duplicate it, right click, take out the outline, and then hit apply here. And then I got the same kind of look here, and obviously it doesn't show because I've got that piece above it, but we can always kind of work that together in one piece. So what I'm going to do here now is I take this, and then I hit Control D, duplicate it, and then I nudge it off and down, and then I fill it with white. And that gives me kind of like a recessed look to my font. See, almost like it's inset. And you can do the same thing here, essentially. So this part will be a little trickier because I'll see where that overlap is, but I can make that work in just a second. So what I'll do here is essentially I'll go Control D. I just want to see if it's working. Yeah, I had to undo my contour is what I had to do here. Let me just undo. Okay. So when you get it to where you want it, as far as that recessed look here, what you'll do is you can kind of see this. You have this piece right here, which is your kind of masking piece, and then you have the piece that you're going to mask, and then you just trim it. And then you can take your original here and you hit delete just to make sure it isn't there. And then these pieces right here, if they don't align perfectly, you can nudge them over. just a little bit, like 1. I can create this, and just nudge that over 1, and I think there's one below it. Nudge that over 1. Nudge that over 1. And then eventually we got all the pieces lined up. And then what we can do is, you can see how this is a contour group here. I'm going to go ahead and break this apart, and then what I'll do is I'll fix it and make it all one piece. The way I do that is delete here. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to grab this piece, I'm going to hit Control D, Shift Page Up, and then I'll hit this, not that piece, but this piece, and I'll combine it. Let me make sure there's an extra one under there. Looks like there is. Click that, and we'll merge it. Weld it. Yep. Except I don't want that G, so I'm going to cut the G, because I just want the piece that goes in the tail. So click here, trim, there, and then delete this, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a second, because that piece I won't want. Yeah, I'll just leave it like that. And then what I want is I'll take that and then I'll merge it with this piece here, merged, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my contour. And see, this is the shape I want. And then for this, I'm going to hit Control D, and then again I'm going to kind of nudge it down, and this will be my, whoops, let me hit delete. I need to break it apart. Control K, and then take my contour and duplicate that, and then nudge it. And I can use this little cutout as a reference. Turn it white, just to make sure I'm about right on the amount. And that looks about right there. And then I will trim it. There, and trim it. And then here, what I'll do is I'll Control K, and I'll use the Shift key and deselect this and that, and then I'll delete the rest. Let's just take a look here. I don't need that top piece. Can move that. Yep. See, that's what I want. And sometimes if things are in your way, you can kind of flip them. And then this piece I can delete, and now you can see that this really, let me just Control K and get rid of it. Delete. And then all I really need are these two pieces, because I don't need that piece. So I can go here, click, and I can just get rid of it with its nodes. Like all those nodes, I can just delete. Essentially there, delete them. And then this piece I can flip over here. Hold the Control key, flip it over. Let me go back, and then I'm just going to hit Control K and break it apart, because the only pieces I really want are this piece and this piece up in the corner. The rest of them I already have, so I delete those. Whoops, and then I got to deselect that and then delete. And so I want this piece and that piece and that piece, and I'll group those and then Control Page down a bunch so it goes below this, and it needs to stay above that. So all I really need to do is take this piece and Control D, Shift Page up, and then trim off the bottom part of it. Trim. There we go. And hit delete. And then you can kind of see that's where you get that effect, where it's looks like it's sunken in a little bit. Click there, and we can make that black, just so it's got a nice edge to it. Make that black, and make that piece black. And so it looks seamless, even though we create it in separate pieces, right? On these lines. And then what we want now, let me save it. And then this font and this font, we want to put on a circle around the outside. So click here. We can start there and drag it out to right about there. just for ease of reference, I'm going to make it magenta so you can kind of see it. That looks about right. And then these fonts obviously need to be a little bit smaller. I'll drag them down there. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of drag this over just so it doesn't, sometimes when you're putting stuff on circles it gets a little weird. So click this, hit Control S, save, text, fit to text path, go ahead and here, click there, then click here, text, fit text to path, and then I'll go to the bottom, click there, right here. And so you see I got both on the path. This one, however, I need to mirror and mirror and then drag it down one. And then you need to use the shape tool to spread it out, right? And then if you hold the shift key, it spreads out just a little bit of the word spacing. And then you grab all the nodes and you kind of turn it up. And then this one, same thing. Word spacing is a little greater. Grab all the nodes, probably nudge it this way, I would guess. And then, again, save your file. And then you want to move this, just the ellipse, and hold the shift key, click here, and then CE. Oh, it didn't completely center. Well, that's okay. Here's what we can do. If it's not completely centered, what you can do is you can click this, just the ellipse, and then you can drag that and kind of align it. And if it doesn't align perfectly to this, then you can kind of just check the center point. It looks like the center point's pretty close there. And then I can let it off. And then I'm going to click here. I'm going to fill them all with white. And then I'll click my center line and then fill that in and minus. And so then you have this kind of effect. Now, it's still on the path, so I can adjust my text here. So I can grab my nodes like this, and I can kind of nudge them down and around a little bit if I need to have the space evened out. Same thing here. If I need to kind of go this way, and I want to kind of move it this way, just like that. Perfect. And then I want to save it. That's good. And then what I want to do is I want to put a little flare in the middle of this thing and then put a little effect on the end just to wrap it up. So the flare that I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and make this and this the school color, which is going to be red, and then go ahead and make this background, this extrusion, we'll go ahead and make red. And then this extrusion, just like that, and I'll save it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put that little flare in the background, then I'll put a little bit of an effect on this, and you can see how that's done. So let's save it again, and then the flare, we're going to go ahead and go here, and let's do a star. And in this case, a star, I'm going to do like, let's do like 30. And then I'll start in the center point here, and I'll hold it. And if I hold the the Control key, that constrains it to a center star. And then if I hold the Shift, it constrains it to this. And I'll go like this out. Now I'm going to go ahead and go with an orange just so I can see it. And what I want is actually want more than that. So instead of 30, I think I'm going to go 40. I hit Enter. And then I'm going to use the shape tool. I'm going to pull this center point in. I'm going to go in like most of the way. So it goes all the way in. And then I'm going to pull this out just a little bit bigger. Like this. You can kind of see that. And that gives me an idea of like, okay, how can I make this so that it fits for this, but I want it to be even, you know, like a little bit thinner even. So I might even go in even a little more like that. There. And then I'm going to try filling it with red, no outline, and then Shift, and then page down. And you can see how that kind of flares behind it a little bit. Obviously I still want that kind of cut out, so I might have to redo that, but I can also do another effect real quick to kind of capture that and kind of knock that out. But what I want here is I actually want these to flare just a tiny bit more. I don't want them to be too far out past where they're going to work here. There, that's pretty good. I'm going to hit Control S, save it, and then I'm going to make from this center point, I'm going to make a oops, going to go the Control key and the Shift key together can train it to a perfect circle. So I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to click here, Control D, and then make it a second perfect circle here. And I'm going to merge these two and make myself a donut. Control L. I'll fill it with black. And then I'm going to shift page down, and then I'm bump it up twice. So that already kind of knocked out some of it around here. And then the outsides of this, a fast way to knock out all of this would be, instead of going through the pain of doing all that, I'm just going to grab it all here. And I'll group it, and I'll duplicate it real quick. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put a outline on all of it. Grab it all here. And then make sure it's round. And then I'm going to go ahead and go, let's go 24. You can see where that cuts it all out. Does it cut it all out? It looks pretty good. Maybe we'll go 28. And I'll say OK. And then Control page down. And you can kind of see, okay, on the top, it looks a little clunky here. It might be hitting some clips on this thing, but it's not too bad. But let's go ahead and go just a hair bigger. Let's go 36. Okay. Yep, that's good. And then what I'll do is I'll duplicate it, Control D, and then Control page down, and then nudge it down. And you'll see it has to rebuild it, but then that flushes it out on the bottom. So basically that's a quicker way to kind of knock it all out. And it works if it's, you know, matching the background essentially. I'm going to hit save, Control S, save it, and then I'm going to use a outline on these shapes. Let's go ahead and use an outline on that, and I'll use these shapes. Will be like a 10-point behind fill, and again I'll use, since they're rough, I want to make sure they're rounded so you don't get any weird points. I'll say OK. We could even go a hair bigger than that, just to make sure it's, let's go 14. So that's a good outline there. Whoops. This one. Yep. 10. Let's go ahead and go to 14. 16 maybe. Let's go 16. There we go. Okay. And then my last, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then my last little thing is going to be to put a kind of a grit into this file, just so that it has a little bit more character. As it is, it's kind of still, even though this is a little rougher on the edges, it's still a little bit too clean. So what I want to do is I'm going to go, I'm going to import, and I'll go, let's go, here we go, we'll go here, here, and we'll get this one, and we'll grab this, we'll import it, click it here, and so I'm going to grab this texture. Now I'm going to show you something a little different with this. It's going to be kind of a jersey effect, so I'm going to save this just so that we don't get any real weirdness going on. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go bitmap, mode, I want to resample it. I'm going to go ahead and go up to 600 dpi. Let's go ahead and change it to grayscale first, just so it doesn't bomb out my computer here. Grayscale, because that'll be a huge file. And then we can go bitmap resample to 600. Oops, 500. I want 600. There's that. 600. I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to go to mode. Actually, let's go effects, adjust, tone curve. And then I'm going to make this, let me reset it. I'm going to make this like a medium gray. Like this, right around, just below, like right around 60% gray. I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to convert this. So bitmap mode, let's go black and white. And what you'll get now, you'll see this in a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a halftone. I'm going to do a halftone of this so it looks kind of grungy, but I'm going to do a little bit bigger. So I'm going to probably do like a, let's do like a 28 and see how that looks. You can see how that's kind of gritty. I could go even a little bit bigger. You can see there's, let's see, redo, undo. Let's go a little bigger. Just have some fun with it. Bitmap mode, black and white. It should hold the same value even though I didn't end up finalizing it. Yeah, round 29 lines per inch. Let's go ahead and go 16. Let's do 16 and try OK. There we go. Now it's kind of got a really funky, kind of half-toned, gritty look to it. And then now this file, I'm going to take and I'm going to put it into my, here, I'm going to take this, I'm going to fill it with nothing, and I'm going to right click with red, and then I'm going to darken that red up like there's no underbase. So I'm going to click this here, and I can kind of click my image there, and then I can just go like it's red with no underbase, make it a maroon. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to take that and I'm going to click here, effects, object, power clip, place inside frame, and I'll just pop it in here. You can see how it kind of went and made all that gritty. And then I will click this here, object, power clip, copy power clip from, and copy it from there, right? And then here, I can zoom in. You can kind of see that grittiness there, that kind of chunky halftone-ish effect. And you can do the same thing here. Click this, object, power clip, copy power clip from, and then copy from there. And then that'll give you that kind of grit across the board. Now you could do 2 or 3 layers of that. You could actually take this and actually knock some more out of it out. You could take some of it and actually, if you wanted to, go in there and create some gray values or something, depending on what you wanted to do. Okay, let me zoom out here. There we go. And let's close this, close this. Obviously that's kind of memory heavy, so you have to beware if your computer's a little bit on the lighter side. Now some people have asked me in the past, they're like, well, how would I do this piece here? And if it's all, you wouldn't want to put a power clip into all of those pieces on this shape. But what you could do, there's a couple different ways of handling it. If you wanted to put this same kind of gritty effect in this red shape here, which is your extrusion. So you got a group of 11 objects, and you got a group, and then there's another group here of, this extrusion here, which is another group of 11 objects. So what you could do theoretically, if you wanted to put that, I could drag it over here. I could just show you real quick. You get it over here, and you right click and you drop it. So essentially you're doing is you've got all of this red shape here. That is your piece. I'm going to ungroup it. And so you've basically got this piece right there, and then you've got all the rest of the red pieces. But what I don't need is I don't need anything that's on top. So I can delete that. I can delete this. I can just delete all the stuff I don't need. And then all of these pieces, and I can save the file, which is always a good idea when we're doing this with a bunch of objects. And then what you can do is, since there's all these outlines on these pieces, you go object, and then you can basically all these 4 of these, you ungroup them. So there's 44 total objects, and then you can convert outlines to objects. So you basically do that, and then it'll pop out. It'll make all these outlines into outside shapes. Now there's a choice here. One choice is to actually make this into a bitmap and then trace it. Another choice is to try to see if you can merge it all. Now if you try to merge it all, sometimes CorelDRAW will have a real problem with it and lock up. We can take our chances with that, just because you've got multiple. If you go into wireframe mode, you'll see you got multiple overlapping shapes and it might get confused with how it's supposed to work. The other thing is there's this shape here which is white, which I didn't even know was there, so I can delete that, and I can delete this. So now it's always a good idea to go to wireframe mode and see what's up before you try to attempt. We'll attempt it. If it locks up, I'm going to save it again. Worst case scenario, I can just reload the file and finish the video in a minute. So if this locks up, you'll notice because it'll stop, and then I'll redo it, but we'll try welding it. Okay, and for wahoo, it seemed like it worked pretty good. Let's go. Wireframe, yep. In this case, welding it worked, and I think we're in business. So all I have to do now is essentially move it back to where that other shape was. So I can click this and move it back right to where the other shape, basically you can kind of see where it's at there. And even if it's not perfect, you're probably going to be okay, because essentially you're going to nudge it down behind this. And essentially here what you're going to do is this, you're basically going to do the same thing. Object, power clip, copy it, and paste it in from there. And then it should pop in that look. And then all I really need to do here is I need to ungroup these, because now I can kind of nudge this down. I can control page down. Control page up. Oh, okay, so this is still grouped. Let's see. So control page down. That's interesting. Let's see what's going on here. Let me zoom out a little bit. I know there's a lot of power clips going on, so it might be struggling a little bit to render this, but we're close. Let's see. We could take this piece, hold the shift key, grab that, grab this, grab that, and grab this one, and then shift page up. See how that works. Yep. And then all we really need at this point is we need the one. I'm going to undo it. Click this one, 6, and then we'll go one more, 7, and then shift page up. Just got to bump it above that. You can see, okay, so that's the one with the edge that I want, and then we just need this one, which has that outline. So control page up, and that should do it for that bottom part of it. Yep, there we go. So that took a little longer than planned, but you can see, and again, this, I actually want this piece to be above, so I can hit shift page up again until I get it above the tail part that's below. I can just keep going here, shift page up. Yep, there we go. There we go. So then, you can save this, present it, and you have a really cool school design that's kind of rendered and has the whole kind of gritty effect to it. And it's really unique, and it's hard to duplicate. And we did everything here essentially with only one imported texture, and it's actually really easy to separate too. So again, subscribe to the channel and you keep getting all my videos, so I appreciate it.